I approached Humanist Society Scotland mainly because, firstly, I always felt that young people, especially in sort of modern sort of philosophical or political sections, are always represented. And I felt, especially in my time as a member of the Youth Parliament, that the idea of a humanist in the Youth Parliament was kind of always sort of not hushed away, but always kept as a sort of, wasn't a big thing. Especially with a lot of different conversations going on, ultimately there was a lot of motions that would be seen as important or philosophical, and I felt that a humanist touch to things would be more than fair in an atmosphere that's widely philosophical or political. I've always never been religious in thinking. I grew up in a very religious family. My gran was a Baptist Christian, and one of the first things I was gifted by her was a child's Bible, but just never really took to the whole Bible stories. I always thought there was something else out there could be a different way of thinking. At a very early age I found humanism, and I've always just stuck to that sort of way of identifying myself, because it's always been which way I feel more comfortable and I like the ideas. In humanism, I always identify with the core sort of principles of being kind, of morality without the idea of it being gifted by a higher power, and the idea of accepting and respecting people's liberties. Definitely think the newer generations as it goes on, are becoming less and less sort of tied to religion. So I feel that there's a lot of young people that would just would never give it a second thought and identify as an atheist, when at heart they would read sort of what humanism is, or see a post from Humanist Society and think, wow, I agree with that, or this is exactly what I'm thinking. And then I think that through that, I think a lot of young people would finally accept that title and say, yes, this is what I am, I'm more than comfortable with it now, I now know what this is, and would call themselves humanists. I'd say that atheism and humanism are sort of hand in hand. However, I feel that humanists take a more strong approach to the whole idea of civil liberties, morality, being kind, and saying, this is what I can do, this is from me as a person, rather than a sort of a religious perspective of being from a higher deity. A lot of young people, I feel, especially these days, myself included, are a lot more active now because they see that there's a lot of things going on in the current times, whether it be political or philosophical. A lot of people, especially young people, are now realising, whoa, I actually can have a difference here. I can properly make a difference if I just put my head down and get people interested or get people together. And I feel that with a sort of Humanist Youth Scotland movement, we could bring together young people that are like-minded, or educate people that are not in the know of this, and definitely make a change to things that really, really have a sort of say to young people, or that could be young people think they could have a huge difference to. I feel that a lot of young people are a lot more open to different ideas and a lot of different agendas, and I think that sort of collection of different ideas would be something that would be very interesting to see come together with Young Humanists in Scotland, because a lot of young people nowadays are very in the sort of progressive way of thinking of the old ways are there. They're not set in stone though. They can make a huge difference. I feel like a lot of young people across Scotland do feel like campaigns such as legalising assisted dying or bringing an end to compulsory worship in school are more than reasonable and more than achievable goals. And I feel that young people banding together in a group such as Young Humanists Scotland could be the sort of the flagship that brings across that change for the betterment. Ultimately, the end goal would be to have elected 2 MSYPs for Humanist Youth Scotland to take forward what the young people of Humanist Youth Scotland want, and to be the 2 representatives for young humanists across Scotland. Because I feel that, especially from my time in the Youth Parliament, sort of humanist voice is always the voice in the corner that's shouting loud but always drowned out by either the people that wouldn't call themselves humanists or by the religious follower groups. Ultimately, from off the top of my head, there are 4 religious follower groups, and unfortunately none that would classify themselves as being directly humanist in thinking. They're humanist MSYPs, of course, but again, there's no that sense of communityship or togetherness. It's more of a one person will say one thing at this point and then the other person will say another thing at the other point. There's no togetherness. The work I'd like to achieve with Young Humanist Scotland would be to bring a sense of togetherness for young people to learn about humanism, learn about our values, our core principles, to become part of a group that says that here's what we want to achieve, here's what we can achieve, and it's not through big sort of overly done ideas or through massive amounts of babying. It's about saying, here's what we want, here's what you can do to bring this together, and we depend on your support of young humanists across Scotland to achieve it. I think if you're interested in sort of this massive, what I hope will become a massive thing, then you definitely should look onto the social medias. You should look onto the Facebooks, the Twitter pages, the Humanist Society Scotland website. Even basic things like go search up what humanism is. If you have the money, buy the little book of humanism. Just read up on what humanism is, because I do feel that there's tons of people out there that would not directly call themselves a humanist but hold those core values and principles. Humanism for me, I'd say, is the philosophical belief that we can have morality, we can have a better world, we can have kindness, we can have caring attitudes towards everyone without the existence of a god or without religious intervention. I hope to achieve a strong and steady future for humanist ideals and humanist ideologies in Scotland, and I hope to achieve a good sort of group of people that want to see change in Scotland for the betterment of young people and for the betterment of humanists across the entire country.